My neighbor wouldn't stop parking in front of my house. I asked politely for weeks. He laughed in my face and said, "What are you gonna do, cry?" So, I did something worse. Now he sits on his porch every night just staring at the ground. We moved to Rockville, Maryland, about a year ago. My wife and I had been living in a cramped two-bedroom apartment with 2 kids under 4. Between the noise, the parking, and the paper-thin walls, we needed a change. So, when we found a modest 3-bedroom house with a decent yard and a quiet street, we jumped on it. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like a step up. We had barely unpacked when I noticed the red Ford Explorer parked outside our place. It wasn't blocking the driveway, just parked close to the curb, right in front of our mailbox. I figured maybe a visitor. But the next morning it was still there. And the next. At first, I thought maybe the guy next door had too many cars for his own driveway. But after a week, I realized it wasn't temporary. The guy, Jeff, had moved in across the street, 2 doors down. Maybe early 40s, scruffy beard, always in cargo shorts and beat-up boots. The type who mowed the lawn with headphones on and beer in hand. He had that look like he was always daring someone to talk to him. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. After 2 weeks of his truck being parked directly in front of our house, I finally walked over. It was a Saturday morning. He was outside smoking. I introduced myself and asked, as calmly and respectfully as I could, if he could start parking in front of his own house instead. I explained that my wife struggled with the double stroller and trash pickup had missed our con twice already. He didn't say a word for a second, just squinted at me, then smiled, like I'd said something funny. "What are you gonna do, cry?" he said, and then just turned back around and went inside. I stood there for a second. I remember my ears felt hot. I walked home without saying anything. The truck stayed. Every day. Sometimes he'd leave and come back, parking even closer to our mailbox, like he was trying to prove something. He started leaving little things behind. One day there was a crushed can of beer on our lawn. Another time I found a cigarette butt shoved into our fence slats. I never saw him do it, but it always showed up after his truck had been there. I tried again. I left a polite note. It came back the next day taped to our door with the words "Public Street" written across it in red marker. My wife stopped walking down our street. She didn't want to deal with it. Our babysitter started parking down the block. I stopped inviting family over. I felt like a prisoner on my own property. I called the non-emergency police line. They said he wasn't doing anything illegal. No parking laws broken. No threats made. So, I started paying attention. I couldn't do much during the day, but I noticed something strange early one morning around 6 a.m. Jeff's truck pulled away from our house, but instead of heading to work or out of town, it only went about 3 blocks over, to a rundown house on Cherry Lane. At first I thought maybe it was a relative's house. But I kept seeing the same thing every morning. He'd leave at 6 a.m., go to Cherry Lane, and not come back until late at night. Sometimes he wouldn't come back at all. That's when I got suspicious. I started walking by that house during my morning jogs. The place was clearly vacant. Grass up to the knees. No curtains. Peeling paint. But every night, Jeff's truck was parked in the driveway. Sometimes I saw him on the back porch. Once I saw him carrying a bag of groceries inside. I started doing research. The property was in probate. The previous owner had died without a will, and the house had been sitting empty for over a year. No one was supposed to be living there. No utilities listed as active. The city's online portal even marked it as unoccupied. So I started gathering proof. Photos, videos, license plates. I took videos of him walking around the house. A few times I caught him unlocking the back door with a screwdriver. I even got him hauling a used mattress out of the back of his truck one night. It took a few weeks to get everything together. I printed the photos, wrote out a timeline, included the property records, and sent the whole thing to the city inspector's office. 2 weeks after that, I got a call confirming the report had been escalated. Then one Thursday, I heard tires screech outside the Cherry Lane house. 2 city trucks and a patrol car pulled up. I walked over and stood on the sidewalk. One officer went around back. Another knocked on the front. I didn't see what happened inside, but about 20 minutes later, Jeff showed up in his truck. He saw the cops and just stopped in the middle of the street. No attempt to explain anything. No yelling. Just frozen. They didn't arrest him. I don't think they could. But the city sealed up the property and changed the locks. I watched him try to get in that night, rattling the doorknob like it was some mistake. He ended up sleeping in his truck. For the next week, it never left his driveway. He started parking in front of his own house again, because now he had nowhere else to go. And every night, I see him out there, sitting on his porch. Not yelling, not sneering. Just staring at the sidewalk like it's got something written on it he can't quite read. I never spoke to him again. A month after the city shut down the Cherry Lane house, things got quieter. Jeff stopped parking in front of our place. He didn't play music during lawn work anymore. Didn't say anything when we passed each other. It felt like maybe he'd gotten the message. But then weird things started happening. One morning, our trash can was tipped over. Not like it got knocked by the wind, more like it was shoved with purpose. Trash scattered up and down our walkway. I didn't see it happen, but the timing felt too exact. I didn't say anything to Jeff. I just cleaned it up and moved on. 2 nights later, our motion light clicked on at 2 a.m. I got up and looked through the blinds. No one was there. But the next morning, I found a rock in the middle of our driveway. It had a smear of something dark on it, maybe oil or paint. I threw it out, but I took a photo first. Then the tire slashing happened. It was a Friday morning. My wife was loading the kids into the car for preschool when she saw it. Back driver's side, completely flat. I checked and found a clean, straight cut near the edge. No way it was an accident. I filed a report. The officer said what I expected. Without video or a witness, they couldn't do much. I bought cameras that weekend. 2 mounted to the front of the house. 1 pointed toward the driveway. Another angled across the street, aimed perfectly at Jeff's front yard. I didn't hide them. I wanted him to know. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Jeff didn't look at me. Didn't step near our side of the street. Just smoked his cigarette and sat on that porch. Until one night, 3:17 a.m. The camera caught someone in a hoodie walking up our driveway. Couldn't see the face, but the walk? It was him. That slight limp on the left leg. That weird, hunched shuffle like he was trying to walk quietly but didn't know how. He never touched anything. Just walked up to the edge of the garage and stood there for a full 30 seconds. Then walked back across the street. Like he wanted me to see it. That's when I realized. He wasn't just angry. He was waiting for me to react. I called the police again, showed them the footage. They said unless he broke something, there wasn't much they could do. But they filed an incident report. Gave me a case number. A few days later, something unexpected happened. A woman showed up at Jeff's house. Not the same woman from Cherry Lane. This one looked older. Maybe his sister. She knocked, talked to him on the porch. I couldn't hear what was said, but her hands were shaking. She pointed across the street, at me. He looked down. Didn't say anything. She left with tears in her eyes. That same night, Jeff moved the truck. Not just off the street, off the property entirely. I saw him park it in the alley behind the strip mall 3 blocks down. The next morning, there was a for sale sign on his front lawn. That's when the guilt started creeping in. Because for all the things Jeff had done, there was something in that conversation, the way that woman looked at me, that made me think there was more to the story than I'd ever know. The for sale sign sat out there for 3 weeks. No changes. No showings. Jeff didn't mow the lawn. Didn't clean up the junk near the curb. Just sat out front every evening in the same chair, same spot, same look in his eyes. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something else. Like regret or fear. Or both. Then one day, a kid from down the block, maybe 16, came to my door. Said his dad worked for a local handyman crew. Asked if I wanted to get my fence looked at since he noticed the slats were loose. I thanked him, told him I'd take care of it. Before he left, he looked over at Jeff's house and said, "That guy used to fix stuff for my uncle. Weird dude. Used to live with his mom till she died in that house." I froze. I asked, "He lived in that house before?" The kid nodded. "Yeah. Forever." I thought he still owned it or something. That wasn't what the property records said. According to the city, the house had changed hands after a foreclosure 5 years ago. Jeff wasn't listed as an owner or tenant. But now I had more questions. I pulled up the older records, dug deeper, found an old obituary. Jeff's mother, Margaret Ellen Davis, died 5 years ago in that same house. No next of kin listed. The house went into probate, later bought by some investment firm that had let it sit empty until Jeff started showing up again. So he had lived there for years. Maybe his whole life. The Cherry Lane house wasn't just a squat. It was his old home. And when the city shut it down, I hadn't just taken away a hideout. I'd taken away the last piece of something that probably mattered more to him than he could admit. That explained the way he looked at it. The way he stood in the backyard sometimes, staring at the fence like he was remembering something. That was the only place he'd ever felt safe. And I'd ripped it out from under him. But none of that explained what came next. 3 nights later, around midnight, I heard sirens. Not close, but enough to make me check outside. I saw smoke in the sky, not from our block, but close. A few minutes later, I checked the neighborhood Facebook group. Someone posted that a fire had broken out in an empty house on Cherry Lane. My stomach dropped. I ran back to the camera footage. Rewound to 11:42 p.m. That same hooded figure. Same walk. This time walking away from Cherry Lane. I knew it was him. He had gone back. For revenge. For closure. Maybe both. But this time I didn't call the police. The next morning, the Cherry Lane house was blackened and hollow. News said it was a suspicious fire, but no suspects named. I waited for cops to come ask questions. No one did. Jeff didn't say a word. Didn't look at me. Just sat on his porch like nothing happened.
But now, something about him changed.
He wasn't watching the street anymore. He was watching me. Not all the time. Not obvious. But sometimes I'd look up from watering the yard or bringing in groceries, and he'd be there, just watching, not blinking. And then he'd look away like it wasn't even about me, like he was seeing through me. One night, around 10 p.m., I caught him standing in the middle of the road. Just standing. No car. No cigarette. Just dead center, staring at our front door. I turned on the porch light. He didn't move. Didn't flinch. Then he turned slowly and walked back home. After that, I stopped sleeping well. I double-checked the locks every night. I moved the kids' beds away from the windows. I even kept a baseball bat near the back door. Not because I thought he'd do anything, but because I didn't know what else to do. Then the letter came. Not a threat.
Not even signed.
Just a plain envelope slipped under our front door. Inside was a folded page torn from an old notebook. Written in shaky handwriting, like someone trying hard not to feel anything. She died in that back bedroom. I slept on the floor for a year after because I couldn't be in my own room. I know what I did wasn't right. But I didn't know where else to go. I don't have people like you do. That's all it said. I didn't show it to my wife. I didn't tell anyone. I just sat with it. Because that's the part no one tells you. Revenge feels good, but only for a minute. After that, it just feels heavy. And that weight doesn't go anywhere. A week after the letter, I saw him at the grocery store. I almost didn't recognize him. He looked smaller somehow. Not thinner, just collapsed. His shoulders were rounded like something was physically weighing them down. We crossed paths near the freezer aisle. He looked up, saw me, and stopped walking. We stared at each other for a second. Neither of us said a word. Then he nodded. Not an apology, not in anger. Just a small, slow acknowledgement. And I nodded back. It didn't fix anything. I didn't feel better. I still didn't trust him. But in that moment I saw something real behind his eyes. Something that made me realize he wasn't just some bully trying to mess with us. He was broken. And maybe always had been. A few days later, the for sale sign came down. No one bought the place. He didn't move. But the truck disappeared. I never saw it get towed. Never saw it drive off. One day it was just gone. And then one morning, there was a knock at our door. I opened it and found an envelope taped to a cardboard box. No name. No note. Inside were 4 old photo albums and a VHS tape labeled 1994. The photos were all of the Cherry Lane house. Jeff as a kid, his mom, Christmas trees, backyard barbecues, birthdays in that same living room I'd seen boarded up and burned. I don't know why he gave them to me, but I kept them. Because now, every time I walk past that empty house, I see something different. Not just a burned-out structure. I see a memory, someone's entire history, reduced to ash and silence. And I don't know if what I did was justice, or just the final nail in someone else's last place to hide. And sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder if maybe I was the one who pushed too far. Not because he didn't deserve consequences, he did. But because now, every time I look across the street and see that empty porch, I can't shake the feeling that I took something from him I still don't fully understand.